After mastering the supernatural power, the pressure that had been hovering in Zhang Yi's heart weakened a lot. After traveling for such a long time and seeing many superpowers who destroyed the world with his own eyes, Zhang Yi has been feeling stressed because he is just an ordinary person. Just like the incident of General Zod's invasion that Zhang Yi personally experienced, it was hard for Zhang Yi to imagine how he could have saved that universe if it weren't for the Kryptonians having such a weakness as kryptonite. With his own abilities, he might die in the aftermath of any battle. Even Pietro couldn't save him 100%, so the result before him was just to continue running away. Zhang Yi had run away enough, and he didn't want to run away anymore. He didn't want to make himself a burden to the entire team, so Zhang Yi would rather spend 17 years quietly improving himself. Fortunately, the result was wonderful. Zhang Yi felt the magical energy flowing around him and gradually felt at ease. These magical energies come from this universe. They will be sensed by wizards and attracted by them. However, the magical energy floating in the air is extremely weak, far less than those magical dimensions. Pietro, please continue playing. John and I went out for a walk. I haven't been in contact with human civilization for so long, and I really want to relax. Zhang Yi stretched and said slowly. Originally, Zhang Yi was going to try to use magic energy to restore Pietro's lost arm. With his current ability, he could definitely do it. However, he lacked the spells in this area and the experience of regenerating severed limbs. He rashly tried to use black magic to try it. It was very difficult. Accident-prone. It would be too outrageous to accidentally replace Pietro with a demon arm, so Zhang Yi quickly gave up on this decision. He thought about getting a mechanical prosthetic limb first, and then give it to Pietro later when he was sure. Luo restored his arm. Where are you going? I'll go with you. Kara said. No need. I'm just hanging out with John, and trying to find a way to give Pietro a mechanical prosthesis. Zhang Yi waved his hand casually, and then pulled John out of the house without waiting for Kara to speak. Looking at Zhang Yi's obviously wrong look, Kara tilted her head suspiciously. She glanced at Pietro in confusion. The latter shrugged his shoulders and went back to playing the game. Withdrawing his gaze, Kara started driving directly. Excite. It wasn't that she didn't believe Zhang Yi, but she was a little curious that Zhang Yi had stayed in another world for so long and left in such a hurry just after returning. There must be some ulterior secrets in it. Kara used the excuse of worrying about Zhang Yi's safety to convince herself, and then cast her gaze directly into the distance, looking in the direction Zhang Yi left. Since Zhang Yi and John used teleportation magic when they left the door, which caused Kara to lose track for a moment. However, such a trivial matter would not trouble a Kryptonian at all. Kara let go of her five senses, followed Zhang Yi's voice and heartbeat in her memory, and quickly found Zhang Yi's location. Kara's eyes passed through walls, high-rise buildings, and bustling crowds. Finally, her eyes locked on a building with various exquisite neon lights. Under the leadership of John, Zhang Yi strode to the door with a high profile. Soon, countless beautiful women in short skirts and dresses gathered around and surrounded Zhang Yi and John into the hall. Seeing this scene, Kara closed her eyes directly. She was not stupid enough not to know what that place was for. After living in the Earth's civilization for a period of time, she already knew what natural reproduction meant. Kara didn't know how she felt in her heart right now, she just felt unusually speechless. What did you see? Pietro asked curiously. Of course he knew how terrifying Kara's abilities were. During this time, Kara often used her powerful perception to understand the world. Go and have fun. Carla glanced at Pietro, said the next sentence and went directly back to her bedroom. Pietro, who was full of doubts, was left in a mess in front of the computer. After returning to her bedroom, Kara closed the door and reopened a superhero comic book. In this universe, superheroes have become a symbol and an emerging profession, and around these superheroes, many invisible wealth have naturally been born. The most prominent among them is undoubtedly the creation of superheroes. Derivative works created by them. Many companies spend a large amount of money every year to purchase the rights to use and adapt the portraits of superheroes, thereby creating a variety of products to attract the public's attention and promote consumption. And the heroes are naturally happy to do so. After all, not every superhero is a rich second generation like Tony Stark. If someone can bring them some extra money, they are naturally willing to accept it. However, most of the superheroes will donate the money, such as Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Daredevil, Lawyer Matt, etc. Kara doesn't know what they think. She obviously has such a tight life, but I am unwilling to accept this money to make myself live a better life. Using the superhero profession as a framework, a large number of online games, figurine toys and even derivative comics have been created. Kara's favorite thing is to read these comics based on the past experiences of superheroes. For her, reading these comics can give her a better understanding of the superhero profession, and also allow her to understand more about some of the difficulties that a hero needs to face. Kara was not aimless. Ever since she learned that her cousin was a superhero in many parallel universes, she became interested in this profession. At the same time, she also wanted to see what these peers like her cousin were. How to act. Of course, Kara doesn't understand that hearing is believing, seeing is believing, so while reading comics, when she sees a superhero comic character that interests her, she will use her X-sight to directly overcome many obstacles and see the other person alive at this time. This is not only to understand the difference between the other person's real experience and the comics, but also to satisfy Kara's curiosity about this group of people. Over time, Kara developed the habit of using her X-sight to observe various superheroes at night. At first, her original intention was just to better observe the superheroes in this world, but now, this show has become a good way for Kara to relax every night. Especially, after seeing Jean-Yi and John really going to physically relax, Kara also decided to go see other people to calm down her mood. Just as Kara was thinking about whether to watch Daredevil fight with gangsters tonight or watch the X-Men teacher giving evening classes to the students, a pink human-shaped meteor suddenly entered her sight. The sun has dipped below the horizon, and darkness has enveloped the entire northern hemisphere. The night sky above New York City is extremely clear, with countless stars dotting the sky and surrounding the moon. This was a day with such good weather in the cold autumn, and it was rare to see such good weather. But on such a peaceful night, a pink comet broke the silence of the night sky. That thing is high in the sky. No one knows what it is. From the distance that the human eye can observe, only a faint light can be seen crossing the night sky, which makes most people ignore it. The existence of comets. But Kara was different. Her X-sight could almost ignore this extremely long distance. When the comet appeared in her field of view, Kara, who had strong observation skills, locked it instantly. What? Kara muttered and squinted her eyes, trying to better see the other person's identity. Sure enough, after adjusting her perspective, Kara could clearly see the identity of the comet. It was actually a person. No, not people. It is not accurate to say that it is a human being. Strictly speaking, it is a humanoid creature that radiates light. She is moving crazily and rapidly through the sky at this moment, like a comet streaking across the sky. Perhaps this explains why most people ignore it. It is because the other party is too far away from the ground. In addition, she is about the same height as a person and looks very small when she is far away. This also leads to her body. The light looks so weak from the ground that most people can't see it without looking carefully. The appearance of this strange figure immediately attracted Kara's attention, because with Kara's sight ability, she could see through the other person the moment she came into contact with him. The other person's physiological structure was completely different from that of human beings, which directly made Kara judge. The identity of the other party was revealed. It was an alien. Ordinary aliens would not make Kara too curious. After all, there are not a few aliens appearing on the Earth. The aliens she has seen in the past few days are enough to play mahjong. But the condition of this girl with pink fluorescence all over her body made Kara couldn't help but frown slightly. I saw a terrifying scratch on the girl's back, extending from her right shoulder to her left waist. The hideous scar was bleeding continuously. The blood droplets immediately formed ice crystals after dripping into the air. It fell without a trace in the night sky. And not only that, there was a hole that penetrated the palm of the girl's left hand. Judging from the appearance of the wound, it was probably a frontal hit with a small armor-piercing bullet. At the same time, the girl's mental state was also extremely poor. Kara saw that the girl could not support her strength several times and almost fell from the sky. Seeing this, Kara hesitated for a moment, then immediately opened the window, and stepped out of the window gently. The next moment, a huge force filled the bottom of Kara's body, and her whole body burst out like a cannonball. Out! The terrifying biological position made Kara's speed almost invisible to the naked eye. In just a blink of an eye, she disappeared from the spot, heading towards the pink fluorescent figure in her sight. Unlike other speedsters, the Kryptonian's biological stance can completely control the impact of ultra-high speed. While moving forward at high speed, Kara carefully covered up the surrounding sonic booms. This was because Jean-Yi had previously told her to keep a low profile. In less than a cup of tea, Kara came to the girl who was emitting pink fluorescence, and reduced her speed to fly alongside her. Hey, are you okay? Kara looked at her obviously seriously injured look and asked with some worry. This short sentence made the girl tremble all over. She turned her head sharply, with unparalleled fear in her eyes, as if she didn't expect that anyone could catch up with her at high altitude. Do you need help? Kara asked again. She could already see that the girl was at the end of her rope. The other party was acting entirely by willpower. If this continued, the other party would definitely die. The girl opened her mouth, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't say anything. She lost consciousness in midair. The fluorescence on her body suddenly disappeared, and she fell under the influence of gravity. Seeing this scene, Kara quickly chased after her at a faster speed, hugged her in midair, and stopped the girl from falling. At the same time, Kara wrapped the girl up with her own biological position. It was only then that Kara realized that the girl was in extremely bad condition. If she didn't think of a way to save her, then I'm afraid the alien girl would never wake up. Thinking of this, Kara suddenly burst out with all her speed and headed straight towards home. Because it was to save people, Kara did not limit her speed this time, which also caused her to be unable to stop the car when she landed. Although she tried her best to restrain herself due to the power of the biological stance, he accidentally broke his bedroom window. Hearing the loud noise, Pietro immediately dodged and disappeared from the computer desk. When he reappeared, he was already holding the scepter of Zeus tightly in his hand. Just when Pietro was staring intently at Carla's room, the bedroom door opened from the inside, and Carla walked out anxiously and spoke quickly. There is an alien whose life is in danger. She looks like a superhero. You go find some emergency medicine, and I'll go find Zhang Yi. Huh? Pietro was stunned on the spot, but he quickly reacted and nodded sharply. Oh okay, I'll go right away. At this critical moment, the speedster's advantage was immediately apparent. In less than 20 seconds, Kara took Zhang Yi and John back home, and Pietro followed closely behind, holding the medical drugs. Too late. Vomit. This was the first time for Vampire John to personally experience the feeling of being led away by a speedster. Even from a biological point of view, he couldn't help turning his head and holding the trash can and vomited. Zhang Yi's condition wasn't very good either. It wasn't that he couldn't bear the rapid speed, but that he was completely naked. He only remembered that he suddenly saw Kara when he was happy, and then he couldn't help but talk to her. Brought home. Zhang Yi no longer thought about it. He raised his hand and a green light flashed across his body. The next moment, a new suit of clothes appeared on Zhang Yi's naked body. Kara, you have to give me a reasonable explanation. Zhang Yi said helplessly. Hearing this, Kara raised her finger and pointed to her bedroom. Zhang Yi looked in the direction of her finger and saw an unconscious girl lying quietly on the bed in Kara's room. She didn't know whether she was alive or dead. Seeing this scene, Zhang Yi's eyes instantly became serious. The first time he saw this girl, Zhang Yi was attracted by her beauty. She had long golden hair and delicate facial features, and she looked like a sleeping beauty when she was lying on the bed. However, Zhang Yi just looked at it briefly and then withdrew his gaze, and then looked at Kara in confusion. Who is this person? I don't know. She suddenly appeared between the stratosphere and the mesosphere. I saw that she was in very bad condition, so I rescued her. Don't worry, she was not discovered by anyone or tracked. Kara said calmly said. Zhang Yi nodded, and immediately came to the girl's side and began to check her injuries. Unexpectedly, she didn't know that the girl's breath was very weak, even to the point where the lamp was exhausted, and she might be alive at any time. Danger. John, stop vomiting, come here and save people. Zhang Yi didn't know much about medicine, let alone the girl's serious injury. Seeing this, Zhang Yi used magic to freeze the flow of time on her body, and quickly John called over. Okay, okay. Hearing Zhang Yi's cry, John hurriedly put down the trash can. He suppressed his physical discomfort and came to the girl. When he discovered that Zhang Yi could actually freeze time, he couldn't help but glance at Zhang Yi in horror. Don't look at me, save people. Zhang Yi frowned. There are many magics that can control time, but they all require extremely terrifying energy or artifacts. For example, the original god in the early years could use his powerful magic to control the flow of time, and he has the time gem, one of the original stones of the universe. You can also briefly control the flow rate of time. Zhang Yi naturally cannot possess such powerful magic power at present, but with the time controller, he can find a loophole to release this kind of magic that is similar to controlling time. As you wish. John shuddered, and then focused his attention on the horrific scars on the girl's body. He's still alive after being so seriously injured. This guy's vitality is really terrifying. Do you have any first aid tools? It's been prepared a long time ago. Pietro hurriedly brought the things in. Seeing that his large and small bags were very professional, Zhang Yi suspected that Pietro had directly robbed a large hospital. Can you save her? Zhang Yi looked at John with a solemn face and asked. To be honest, I'm not sure. This girl is not from Earth. The fact that she can barely survive until now depends entirely on her special physique. I can help her suture the wound, but she is now suffering from severe ischemia. Even if the wound is cured, I guess so. John sighed. I understand, you treat me first. Zhang Yi nodded, and then waved to Carla and Pietro, signaling them to come out first and not to interrupt John's first aid. As John said before, the injury is not the most critical issue. The most critical issue is that the alien girl has lost a lot of blood. If she cannot be transfused in time, she will still be dead. On Earth, it is almost impossible to find alien blood suitable for her, not to mention that no one knows the origin of this girl at all. Did this girl suddenly appear in the sky? Zhang Yi led the two of them to the living room and asked Kara again. Yes, I was about to observe those superheroes, and then she appeared in my sight. By the way, when I saw her, her whole body was glowing with pink light. Kara thought for a moment, then he answered. Pink light? Zhang Yi was stunned. He carefully recalled the superheroes in Marvel, trying to find out the identity of this girl. After thinking for a long time, Zhang Yi couldn't help but ask. Is it just pink light? Well, there are many colors, like a rainbow, colorful, but the most important thing is pink. Kara thought for a while and replied. Rainbow. Zhang Yi had some doubts about whether the other party's identity might be Crystal from the Inhuman race, but he quickly ruled out this possibility. Crystal and this girl had similarities, but they were not exactly the same. Moreover, this girl is a complete alien. Although it is not certain which planet she comes from, her physique is completely different from that of Earthlings. This is different from those genetically modified people. In the girl's body here, no sequences from Earth have been found. From this point of view, the origin of this girl is very problematic. After all, this is the world of the Marvel Universe, and there are all kinds of superheroes. This girl has superpowers and is an alien, so there is a high probability that she is also a superhero. A hero or a supervillain, in that case, I shouldn't have never heard of her. Moreover, the appearance of this girl was so sudden that she could be so seriously injured. This shows that the murderer's methods were extremely cruel. Logically speaking, such a scene should not appear in the new and completely different universe. Even if it did, it would not be possible for him. No impression at all. Zhang Yi stroked his chin, and a bad guess slowly emerged in his mind. Kara, can you determine the direction she came from based on where she appeared and the route she took? Zhang Yi asked. It's a bit difficult. Her flight route is very complicated. She looks like a headless fly flying randomly. Kara shook her head, and then recalled the situation at that time. But she was very frightened when she saw me. I speculated that she was being hunted, so she flew away in a panic. Then there's a high probability that she didn't come from outside the Earth. If she was hunted down in the universe, then when she entered the Earth, she would be targeted by the Skyward Sword Bureau and the Fantastic Four's satellites. Zhang Yi rubbing his temples, the bad premonition in his heart became more and more serious. By the way, there's one more thing. Kara looked at Zhang Yi's serious face and said again. What's the matter? Zhang Yi raised his head. I have been observing the superheroes in this world during this time. At first, I was just curious about their lives and observing their actions, but in the past few days, the superheroes that I can observe seem to be getting more and more less. Kara said with some uncertainty. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched. He stood up suddenly and looked at Kara with some seriousness. What do you mean by less and less? Originally, I could observe the superheroes in the entire Eagle country, but slowly, many heroes disappeared. I thought they were preparing to take a vacation for themselves, rest for a while, or something like that, but recently, I heard some bad news. Zhang Yi didn't answer and motioned for her to continue. Seeing this, Kara frowned and said. I heard that many superheroes have died. There is a bloodthirsty butcher outside who uses extremely cruel methods and specializes in killing superheroes who act alone. Hearing this, Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed, and the uneasiness in his heart finally became a reality. When did it happen? Zhang Yi silently lit a cigarette for himself and asked. I'm not sure, but this serial massacre seems to have started before we came to this universe. I only heard about it recently. Someone should have concealed the fact of the hero's sacrifice and blocked it. All the news about this matter. Kara said slowly. Hearing this, Zhang Yi puffed out a puff of smoke and quickly thought about comics about massacres of heroes. After combining this with the situation in the universe, a comic name soon appeared in Zhang Yi's mind. Deadpool Slaughters the Marvel Universe, Returns. Among superhero comics, in addition to focusing on heroes to punish evil and promote good, there are also endless comics in which heroes die heroically or are massacred. Leaving aside other universes such as DC, but looking at the Marvel Universe, superheroes the group was wiped out countless times. The death of so and so could no longer attract the attention of readers. They quickly put the butcher knife on the heads of all superheroes, thus spawning several worlds that massacred the Marvel Universe. Not only did the Punisher massacre the Marvel Universe, but even Deadpool himself gave birth to the classic Universe Massacre trilogy, namely Deadpool Massacred the Marvel Universe, Deadpool Massacred Classic Masterpieces, and Deadpool Massacred Deadpool. Zhang Yi originally thought that those stories were just a joke, but judging from the comparison of the characters, the collapse of the combat power was really great. How could an ordinary person like the Punisher have the ability to kill those super monsters who destroyed the world? Hero, this is as outrageous as Barbarian trying to solo Starfleet. Zhang Yi had never thought that he would actually put himself in this kind of universe, which made him immediately feel an invisible pressure hanging over his heart. Deadpool Massacres the Marvel Universe, Resurgence is a story that takes place in a parallel universe of a new and completely different universe. Zhang Yi had read this comic several times before traveling through time, so he was naturally familiar with the plot of the story. To put it simply, Deadpool was brainwashed by the villains headed by the Red Skull for some reasons. When the villains used a sentence as a code to activate the nerve plug in Deadpool's brain, Deadpool would instantly suffer from schizophrenia, and extend it to terrifying hallucinations that were enough to disrupt his brain. In Deadpool's own eyes, he was playing and entertaining other superheroes, but in reality, he was wielding his two swords and brutally killing the superheroes he suddenly attacked. At this point, Deadpool is basically no different from General Zod, who was infected with fear gas. He thought he was punishing the villains and helping the heroes, but in fact he was helping the villains massacre the heroes. Later, after Deadpool killed almost all superheroes, the Pink Ghost, Gwen, learned the secrets of the villain, and when he was killed by Deadpool, she read the corresponding code words to him, awakening the villain's control. Deadpool. As a result, after successfully awakening, Deadpool burst out with unprecedented anger, turned his butcher knife and aimed at the villains. Under his reckless madness, he finally killed all the villains. The plot of the story is not complicated, and the fighting power is not as outrageous as the Punisher slaughtering the Marvel Universe. It is worth noting that when Deadpool chopped off the Red Skull's head at the end, the Red Skull did not die. Instead, his head even spoke and loudly taunted Deadpool, saying that he had gone completely crazy and was not even sure. "Are you really awake now?" As for Deadpool, he left a sentence, "If you are not dead, I will come back and kill you," and then embarked on the road to hunt down other villains. This is an extremely open ending, but for Zhang Yi, the entire world is in a precarious state, not only because of Deadpool who is killing the heroes. This entire comic has revealed a lot of things. It's a smell that makes you feel extremely frightened when you think about it. Deadpool is not the most critical issue, what is hidden behind all this is the real threat. Zhang Yi is not even sure what the source of all this is, but it is not too late for him to see what is happening now, and Zhang Yi still has enough time to investigate. "You already know what happened, right?" Kara looked at Zhang Yi, who had been silent for a long time, and said slowly. "So be it." Zhang Yi put the long-extinguished cigarette butt into the ashtray, and then gave a wry smile. "Originally, I thought we could have a good rest in this world for a while, but now, the leisure time is gone forever. Save the world again, it just so happens that I can learn how superheroes act." Kara looked relaxed, and then she looked at Pietro beside her. Sensing Carla's gaze, Pietro sighed helplessly. "I don't care, the gaming guild has kicked me out anyway." At this moment, the door to Kara's bedroom opened, and John came out wiping his hands with a towel. "How's it going?" Pietro asked. "My life was saved. I used black magic to hold her for her last breath. Next, we have to see if she can survive. After all, she lost a lot of blood, and we are currently unable to determine her identity," John said with more than enough heart and strength. On the other side, in a villa in Los Angeles. Blood covered the ground. Looking inside with the help of lights from outside the villa, you could clearly see the crowds of people inside, and from time to time there could be sounds of metal collisions and explosions. That is because this is an independent house and there are no neighbors around it. Otherwise, this incredible scene would have attracted the attention of outsiders. As the vision advanced, a black woman was floating in the swimming pool outside the villa. Her blood had already dyed the entire swimming pool red. At the gate of the villa, there were still several human limbs scattered, which showed that the battle here was fierce. Inside the villa, the exquisite furniture was blown to pieces by the powerful force and scattered all over the floor. The battle between the few remaining people had reached a fierce stage. They all used their last trump cards to try to give this thrilling battle a chance. To put an end to it. "Wade! How dare you! How dare you hurt my child," an Asian woman roared. In an instant, terrifying magical energy spurted out from her hand, but this fatal blow was flexibly struck by Deadpool. "Hide away." Just like I said, Deadpool suddenly twisted his body in the air, then threw the long knife in his hand, stabbing another woman with colorful pink fluorescence all over her body, and then landed leisurely. "When did you villains dare to trouble me, a hero? Everyone, be careful. Deadpool's brain is completely out of control. It's like a radio receiving thousands of signals." At this time, a man with pink eyes spoke. But the next moment he was beheaded by Deadpool, and at the same time, Deadpool's crazy laughter sounded. "Go away to your six-fingered giant. Maybe if you count carefully, you will find that Gibram has no fingers at all." "That was a mistake, Skull." In Hydra's secret stronghold, Dr. Doom and the Red Skull were walking leisurely in the dark corridor. Looking at the somewhat high-spirited Red Skull, Dr. Doom said quietly. "We shouldn't be putting so much trust in a lunatic like Deadpool, who we don't even have control over. Trust is not placed on Deadpool, Mr. Doom, but on this plan. On the transformation process that Deadpool goes through, he will not betray us because he doesn't know what he is doing." "What?" Red Skull sneered. "What about the others? Can you trust the people you win over? Other people are not worth mentioning. They just need to maintain their position." The two walked side by side and slowly walked into the shadows. "Just like I said. Trust the plan." The two of them did not realize that on the pipe escalator above them, a girl in a pink battle suit was silently paying attention to all this, and she was none other than the famous attendant Gwen. Gwen Poole, also known as Pink Ghost, her original name is Gwen Poole. She originally came from a universe without any supernatural abilities at all. All superheroes and supervillains are fictional characters from comic books, movies, etc. From this point of view, there is not much difference between her and Zhang Yi's universe before crossing over. But later, due to an accident, Gwen accidentally traveled through the parallel universe and came to the Marvel universe where superheroes live. In this case, in order not to be a passerby, Gwen found a way to find someone to get herself a suit similar to Deadpool, calling herself the Pink Ghost. At the same time, she also imitated Deadpool and started to wander between black and white. A mercenary in the Tao, it was also at this time that she learned some combat skills from the villain Jumper. As for now, the reason why waitress Gwen appears here is because she received a well-paying business. That's right, you bastards. Mr. Moon Knight will understand this information. At that time, the Avengers will attack again and defeat all of you guys who are only worthy of plotting in the gutter. Muttering to himself, Gwen quickly opened the connection with Moon Knight, took a photo of Dr. Doom and the Red Skull leaving, and quickly sent it to Moon Knight. This photo doesn't mean anything at all, I need stronger evidence. What surprised Gwen was that Moonlight Knight could obviously grasp key information through this photo, but what was unusual was that Moonlight Knight did not send her a signal to retreat, but instead asked her to find ways to get more intuitive evidence. Wah, what do you mean? Of course you can recognize who they are just by looking at the back of their heads. Whose head would look like that? Waiter Gwen gritted her silver teeth angrily, and then she whispered in a piqued voice. Okay, never mind, I'll take a better one for you. After saying that, Gwen cautiously jumped down from the hiding position and moved towards the direction where the Red Skull and Dr. Doom left. On the other side, in the dense woods on the outskirts of Indiana. Damn it. Looking at the photos sent by Gwen, Moon Knight frowned. Red Skull and Dr. Doom were not ordinary people. They could bring these powerful supervillains together. They must be planning something beyond everyone else. Anticipate. The most important thing is that Gwen's condition at this time is also very dangerous, and he may even have encountered an accident. This is the nail that Moonlight Knight has spent a lot of effort to insert into the group of villains. The signal is interrupted. Unless we receive news from her again, we should assume that she is dead. Moonlight Knight muttered to himself, as if he was speaking to the Punisher on the side. After the team once again discovers the bodies of Spider-Woman and her husband Porcupine, Misty Knight is fed up with being a step behind Deadpool and feels that their nightly presence puts the superheroes in danger. So after everyone discussed the countermeasures, they decided to act in groups of two. The two cyborgs Cable and Misty Knight were in a group, Hawkeye Kate and the street hero Jessica were in a group. In the end, no one wanted to choose the Punisher. It's a team with Moon Knight. After splitting up, the efficiency was indeed improved a lot. Moonlight Knight and the Punisher soon found Deadpool's next target because they intercepted the signal sent by Deadpool into the universe. Did the girl leave the coordinates? Punisher said, holding the submachine gun tightly. Yeah. Moon Knight nodded. That's it. We now know the identity of the person behind the scenes. It's time to catch them all. I'm tired of always feeling one step behind Deadpool. He was here just now. And we missed him again. They must have carried heavy weapons to complete this attack. The Punisher looked angrily at the fire-filled location in the woods. There, several corpses lay limply in the dense forest. Among them, a huge humanoid plant's chest was still glowing with fire, and not far away, the animals were skinned and hung on branches. After all, the Guardians of the Galaxy are not, or have been, easy opponents. That message was sent by Deadpool to the heroes of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He used the news that the heroes were being slaughtered to invite the Guardians to this forest. When the Guardians of the Galaxy headed by Star-Lord and others when people come here, the first thing they face is Deadpool's sneak attack. The Punisher guessed correctly. With Deadpool's ability, it was still too difficult to kill aliens such as Drax the Destroyer, Mantis, Rocket Raccoon and Groot, so Red Skull and others prepared for Deadpool. Get more professional weapons. The evidence is that after Deadpool slaughtered the Guardians of the Galaxy, he left the body laser gun that could penetrate the alien steel body in place. It looks like Deadpool dropped the murder weapon. The Punisher found the gun. He put away his submachine gun and slowly walked towards the more high-tech laser gun. I'm going to take this and blow it up. Before the Punisher could finish speaking, a voice that did not belong to him or Moon Knight suddenly appeared in his ears. If I were you, I wouldn't touch that laser gun that Deadpool has tampered with. After hearing this strange voice, the Punisher and Moon Knight took action instantly. The two of them rolled away from their original positions at the same time. This was to prepare for a sudden attack by the enemy. Then they smoothly took out their weapons and guarded the position where the sound came from. Only then did the Punisher and Moon Knight see the speaking figure. It was a strange man wearing a beak mask, hiding in the darkness and wearing a black windbreaker. Although the guy didn't make any attempt to attack, the two of them, as superheroes and always in danger, still didn't dare to let down their guard. Especially for Moonlight Knight, after seeing the beak mask of the other party, the more he looked at it, the more he felt that the other party looked like Kong Su, and the person dressed like this at this time must not be a good person. Who are you? I only give you one chance to answer. The Punisher aimed his submachine gun at the opponent's head and shouted in a low voice. Don't get excited, Frank, Mark, or other personalities. I am not your enemy. On the contrary, I am here to save this universe that is about to perish. Zhang Yi raised his head, and the firelight reflected on the lenses looked strange and strange. Fear. Moonlight Knight and Punisher looked at each other, and then stared at Zhang Yi again. They still held the weapons in their hands tightly. Obviously, Zhang Yi's words did not make them let down their guard. And Zhang Yi naturally understood that the two guys in front of him were very bad at trusting other people. If possible, Zhang Yi really didn't want to have contact with these two people, but he had no choice but to pass the doubts in his heart. These two people can answer it. Introduce yourself, you can call me Wu Crow. I am a traveler from other universes. What you don't know at this time is that there is an extremely dangerous existence that is gradually bringing your universe to destruction, and I'm here to help you. Humph, what the hell? The Punisher sneered and said calmly. I don't think we need any help, and Deadpool is not a threat at all. Don't lie to me with this nonsense about the destruction of the universe. Wait. Moonlight Knight stopped Frank quickly after thinking. He hesitated for a while and then put down the weapon in his hand, looked directly at Zhang Yi and asked. What do you mean by extremely dangerous existence? Unfortunately, I don't know either. Zhang Yi shook his head and then said again. Deadpool is not critical. It is very simple to stop him. The Red Skull, Dr. Doom and others behind him are not critical either, because above them, there is an unknown existence. In fact, after learning about the universe he was in, Zhang Yi didn't have a particular sense of crisis, because for Zhang Yi, a time traveler, there was a very big loophole in Deadpool Massacre, Return of the Marvel Universe, and that was Zhang Yi. Hickey has read this comic, and he also remembers the password to control Deadpool. So for Zhang Yi, the problem before him is to find Deadpool, tell him the secret code to wake him up, and let Deadpool kill the villain, and everything will end successfully. If it were Zhang Yi from before, he would definitely do this. With Kara's powerful fighting force, it would only be a matter of time before he could locate Deadpool. Even if Kara can't find Deadpool, Zhang Yi can still track other superheroes, such as Hulk or Shang-Chi. They will all gather in the near future to fight the Deadpools who were transformed into Ultron by the villains. But at this moment, Zhang Yi is no longer what he used to be. The practice of magic and the long-term solitary practice have caused considerable changes in his brain, and the improvement of his intelligence and mental strength is even more significant. After a series of thoughts and confirmations, Zhang Yi keenly sensed an unsettling sense of crisis. In Deadpool's Massacre of the Marvel Universe, Resurgence, the most terrifying thing is that the Red Skull is not completely dead at the end. This open ending has aroused many people's speculation. One of the views agreed upon by most readers is that Deadpool did not escape alive at all. She had died at the hands of the Red Skull and Abomination long ago, so Deadpool never awakened from the beginning to the end. He thought he was killing villains, but in fact he was still hunting down other superheroes, just in a different way. Zhang Yi actually supports this speculation, because it is hard to imagine that Gwen can monitor existences of the level of Red Skull and Dr. Doom, and can escape smoothly after being discovered. This is something that is very difficult to happen. But soon, Zhang Yi discovered another very strange thing, and that was the conversation between Dr. Doom and Magneto in the comics. In the original book, after Deadpool was awakened by Gwen, he began to massacre the supervillains who had conspired to do this. Under Deadpool's butcher knife, almost no villains could survive, and they were all found by Deadpool. Entered the door and brutally killed him. As one of the conspirators, Magneto is naturally on the list. Originally, he cooperated with the Red Skull just to seek some benefits for mutants, but the out-of-control Deadpool has now threatened all supernatural beings. Therefore, in order to preserve the mutant community, Magneto did not choose to fight Deadpool head-on. Instead, he sat there and waited to die, and gave all the villain positions to Deadpool. The relationship between Dr. Doom and Magneto was the conversation took place before Deadpool arrived. Regardless of whether Deadpool is still hallucinating or not, and regardless of whether what Magneto gave to Deadpool was the villain's hiding place or the location of other superheroes, at least when Deadpool arrived, Dr. Doom and Magneto were indeed we actually had a conversation. The content of the conversation between them was not complicated. Dr. Doom admired Magneto very much, and he was unwilling to watch the hero who led the mutants' launch reforms commit suicide. Zhang Yi couldn't tell how many true and false words there were, but there was one thing that Zhang Yi was sure of, and that was that Dr. Doom used his powerful technology and magic to temporarily evacuate him from the Earth dimension. Temporarily evacuated from Earth's latitude? Just kidding, who is Dr. Doom? He is the great god Doom. Will he pack up and run away because of a little Deadpool? With his ability, even if he couldn't develop any machine to limit the X gene, at least he wouldn't be threatened by Deadpool. The reason why those superheroes were massacred by Deadpool can be described as being caught off guard. After all, Deadpool basically relies on sneak attacks to kill people. It is difficult for a human to fight head-on with some powerful beings. But the problem is that Doctor Doom cannot be attacked by surprise. He has already determined the identity of Deadpool, so why is he worried that Deadpool's tool will backfire on him? Furthermore, since they can escape from the Earth dimension, why not throw Deadpool directly into other dimensions? These questions have been lingering in Zhang Yi's mind, leaving him puzzled. Of course, these are just speculations, and Zhang Yi can't prove anything without evidence. Until Zhang Yi made an unintentional discovery that made him pay attention to the above disturbing doubts again. And this discovery is that the two time anchor points originally marked by missed time actually changed inexplicably without affecting anyone, and they actually detached from the universe on their own. And where these two time anchors are located? It's limbo and the dimension of chaos. Magical dimensions refer to those dimensions that do not obey the physical laws of the real world. It is a fantasy world bound by endless magical energy. They are closely related to the real world but far apart. Ordinary people basically cannot explore their mysteries for the rest of their lives. Even those powerful wizards cannot understand the existence of these dimensions without extreme luck. The limbo controlled by Mephisto is such a dimensional space. There are many similar hells. For example, the god of death, Hela, also rules a so-called limbo. In addition to these, there are some powerful existences. You can also use your own divine power to open up a new dimension. For example, Avalon, the kingdom of the gods, the star world, and the dimensions created by the ancient gods at the beginning of creation, etc. These worlds revolve around reality independently with their own laws. From the beginning to the present, each dimension has experienced they have fought grand wars across dimensions, but they have never been disconnected from each other. At this moment, the separation between the hell border and the chaotic dimension gave Zhang Yi an uneasy feeling in his heart, just like the calm before the storm. Under the surface of the sea, in places that humans cannot see, countless lives have already sensed the coming storm. They swim crazily deeper, trying to avoid the devastating disaster. But on the sea, the real world is like a small boat. What awaits her will be the result of destruction of the world. Tell me, Moon Knight, how long has it been since you last seen Kong Su? Zhang Yi retracted his thoughts and focused his attention on the two superheroes in front of him again. Khonsu. Moonlight Knight frowned upon hearing this. As the source of his superpower, all his superpowers come from the legendary moon god Khonsu, one of the Egyptian gods. As one of the ancient Egyptian gods, Khonsu's strength is extremely terrifying. Not only can it travel freely through various dimensions, it can even grant Moonlight Knight extraordinary divine power and the ability to resurrect. In addition, it even controls the heaven and earth. The authority possesses the artifact to control time. As the Moon Knight of this generation, Mark, while maintaining peace, would often receive orders from Kong Su to participate in some major events involving games between the gods. But when he heard Zhang Yi's question, Mark was suddenly stunned. Yes, Kong Su. Kong Su, who is it? Moon Knight's mind suddenly went blank. He suddenly felt a chill crawling up his back from the soles of his feet. This feeling of distorted memory put Moon Knight into a state of self-doubt. However, as a superhero, Moonlight Knight quickly adjusted his trembling heart. He has multiple personalities, so he often suffers from split personality. It is precisely because of this that he faced this incredible situation. Only then can we adjust so quickly. Ah, it seems you don't need to answer. Seeing Moon Knight's reaction, Zhang Yi's lips curled up. He had already got the answer in his heart, although this answer was not good news. What on earth is going on? Moonlight Knight asked the question he wanted to know most. He knew that this was definitely not just a matter of missing a part of his memory. If it was just amnesia, then he would quickly find the problematic areas by relying on the cognition of other personalities and past experiences, and then quickly retrieve his own memory. But now, what he is facing is an indescribable self-confirmation bias. Mark, or other personalities in his body, are affected by this thing, and are too inclined to seek and accept information that is consistent with his own beliefs and expectations, causing him to ignore and reject all contradictory information, falling into a kind of extremely dangerous cognitive biases. He had never noticed the existence of Khonsu, and even the god who gave him all his superpowers had been erased from his cognition. However, he himself did not notice anything was wrong, but was still pursuing it. Deadpool investigates this case of massacre of superheroes. Something wrong with Moon Knight quickly attracted the attention of the Punisher. Although Punisher Frank seems to be a reckless man, he is definitely not a fool. Anyone who underestimates him will pay a heavy price, and now, the Punisher also feels faintly a little uneasy. I can't answer your question because I'm also looking for the source of all this. Zhang Yi said slowly. What I can tell you is that Mephisto has severed all ties between him and the Earth. Whether this is voluntary or not, it at least proves something. With that said, Zhang Yi took another deep look at Moonlight Knight and spoke word by word. I'm afraid the Ghost Rider has lost his ability to be immortal, and you, Mark, if you die during this catastrophe, then I'm afraid you are really dead. This may explain why Deadpool was able to kill the Ghost Rider under the protection of Mephisto. After being separated from the border of hell in the real world, the effect of the contract can no longer last. After losing those great powers, Moonlight heroes like knights are no longer immortal. Listening to Zhang Yi calmly speaking these chilling words, both Moonlight Knight and Punisher were a little frightened. Although their reason told them that everything was normal, they still noticed something unfathomable from Zhang Yi's words. Sense of dissonance. There is something that has affected my cognition. I can't recall anything about Kong Su now. I can't even remember what he looked like. And my reason makes it impossible for me to think about it. Is there something? You're stopping me from thinking any more. Moon Knight hit his head hard. I'm afraid I've been tricked too, Mark. Although I don't know anything about you, I have lost my memory about Mephisto. I remember there is the Ghost Rider, but other things about him, what do I know? I can't even remember it, or maybe the words are on my lips but I can't say them out at all. Sighing, the Punisher also put down the gun in his hand. At this time, they were able to confirm that the guy in front of them was one of their own. I am afraid that, as the Witch Crow said, some unreasonable things are affecting everyone's cognition. The thing that worries me the most has happened, Moonlight Knight said quietly. I should have thought earlier that Deadpool's brain is so wild and unrestrained that Red Skull and others can't control it. Being able to control Deadpool shows that they have something even more terrifying in their hands. That thing can even modify Deadpool's identity. Knowing that, nature can also affect us. By the way, you just said that this laser gun was tampered with by Deadpool. What do you mean? The Punisher suddenly raised his head, looked at Zhang Yi and asked. Literally. Deadpool left it here on purpose. He knew you would pick it up, and he knew you would use it. Zhang Yi stared at the Punisher with a calm expression, letting the chaotic knowledge tear apart their sanity. It not only contaminates your brains, it contaminates the timeline. The Punisher didn't know what state he was in now. He wanted to say something, but when he opened his mouth, nothing came out. His brain that used to think clearly was like clockwork stuck with glue, unable to think at all. The whole person was stuck in a quagmire and couldn't extricate himself. Similarly, the Punisher didn't notice that the palm of his hand holding the gun was trembling slightly at the moment, as if he was trying his best to break away from something, but that a spider web tightly wrapped around his body made his resistance only make him sink deeper. The deeper. What's more serious is that his resistance may even arouse the awareness of some beings. Then what should we do now? Such a serious thing has happened, and we must inform others. Captain America has ordered some heroes to gather together and not walk alone, but now it seems that it may be more dangerous for the heroes to gather together. Murmured the Punisher. It's useless. We can't be sure how many heroes are contaminated, and we can't even be sure what the source of the contamination is. If the opponent has tampered with the timeline, then all our actions will be noticed by the enemy, and they have already disappeared before us. It contaminated everyone when it was discovered. Moonlight Knight's expression was also very bad. Even though his face was hidden under the mask, the emotions he revealed made the atmosphere at this time extremely depressing. What's more, that thing has been integrated into some people's minds, replacing their original identity. The person we trusted before may no longer be the him we know. Treading the horse, is this another battle similar to the Skrull invasion? The Punisher cursed in a low voice, and the three people present knew that this time their opponents were more terrifying than the secret invasion. If it's the contaminated timeline, is it possible that it's Kong? Moonlight Knight suddenly thought of something and said. We had suspected him before when we inspected the death scene of the Fantastic Four. If it was Kong, he might have enough ability to collect some powerful artifacts to stain history, and throw out the Deadpool chess piece to attract us. The look in his eyes is also very similar to this guy Kang's handiwork. Indeed, Kong the Conqueror, a time traveler, has gradually turned his life into a non-linear flow, and each of his invasions will create different variants in the timeline, which also makes it difficult for his existence to be revealed. Recorded by heroes. The possibility is not high. Regardless of whether Kong still has such powerful abilities, his variant has indeed done similar things before, such as stealing Kongsu's artifact, and then fighting the Moon Knights of various timelines, but as far as we know, Kong has left this dimension. After a pause, Zhang Yi said seriously. Besides, that thing can affect your cognition, so it will naturally make you ignore its existence. Since you still remember the existence of Kong, it will naturally not be him. That makes sense. Kong wouldn't have left such a big flaw, but why weren't you affected by that thing? Moonlight Knight raised his head and looked at Zhang Yi, who was hidden under the beak mask, as if he wanted to see through his eyes. Zhang Yi just looked at him silently, and then slowly spoke. Because I am not from this universe. As I said before, I am a traveler from other worlds, and my goal is only to save your world that is about to perish. Do you have a plan? Moon Knight asked. It's hard to say yet. I don't think that thing comes from your universe. The other party should be an invader from other universes like me, just like Dormammu, but the ability of that thing is more terrifying than Dormammu. There are many. Zhang Yi replied silently. If a world like the Marvel Universe is described as a sandbox, then there must be an upper-level narrator who is detached from everything. The upper-level narrator has absolute control over the lower-level narrative and has arbitrary control over it. A means to tamper with any element of underlying transactions. But from Zhang Ye's macro perspective, for this sandbox universe, any existence outside the sandbox is the so-called upper-level narrator, including Zhang Yi himself. Anyone who does not belong to the comic. If the presence of the powerful universe comes here, it will cause huge pollution. Then how are we going to face an enemy we have never come into contact with before, not to mention we don't know the identity of the other party? The Punisher couldn't help but say. Well, Zhang Yi sneered. Maybe it's because that thing didn't expect my arrival, or maybe it's because I'm a special person. That thing didn't affect me, or even noticed me. So the enemy is hiding, and I am hiding, too. What are you afraid of? Zhang Yi's words caused Moonlight Knight and Punisher to fall into silence. Their eyes gradually solidified, the noise in their hearts gradually subsided, and the two of them slowly woke up. Yes, it doesn't matter if the enemy is in the dark, there is no backup on our side. Then what should we do next? The Punisher clenched his fists and asked impatiently. Split up the action. Zhang Yi quickly stated his plan without hesitation. Punisher, go find Doctor Strange. He obviously knows more about things in other dimensions. His position is very important, but this trip is also very dangerous. I can't guarantee whether Doctor Strange is also in a state of mental pollution. The Punisher grinned when he heard this. It doesn't matter. If I don't come back within 2 days, just think of me as dead. It's much better to die on the road of resistance than to die inexplicably. But you also remember, if I don't come to you but use other methods to find you, I contacted you through this method, don't believe it, that's not me. Zhang Yi and Moonlight Knight looked solemnly at the Punisher and nodded seriously. As a real ordinary person, the Punisher has reached one of the most powerful levels of mankind. He can calmly accept a dangerous mission. It can also be seen that he has already put his personal life and death aside. After a while, Zhang Yi looked at Moonlight Knight again and continued. Follow me. I have a seriously injured person here. I suspect she may have clues about that thing, but her current condition is very bad. The divine power you possess may be able to save her. Okay, who is the injured? Moonlight Knight did not refuse. I'm not sure. She should be a superhero who survived Deadpool. She is an alien. I also need you to confirm her specific identity. Zhang Yi explained casually. In response, Moon Knight nodded, but he quickly spoke again. What about Deadpool? If we don't deal with him, Jessica and the others will also be in danger. Don't worry. Zhang Yi smiled slightly. I have my own arrangements with Deadpool. New York Central Park is a large urban park located in the center of Manhattan, New York City. It is not only the filming location for many movies, but also the most visited place in the entire Eagle Country. But at this moment, the entire park was blocked by the police. They received orders from above. An extremely terrifying murderer appeared in this park. In order to stop him and for the safety of the citizens, the police must block it. Only allowed out but not allowed in until the heroes arrived. This is no longer a terrorist attack that ordinary people can access. The news of the disappearance of a large number of superheroes in recent days has been overwhelming. Although Nick Fury tried to use his influence to intervene in all this, the news was still deliberately suppressed. People spread out. The Avengers team, the Defenders of Hell's Kitchen, the famous Iron Man Tony Stark, and the Fantastic Four, one after another superheroes are on the death list, and no one knows who will be next. No one knows who can stop that terrifying demon. A large number of people have fallen into extreme panic. Many people are saying that this will be the end of heroes in this world. At the same time, this has also made some gangsters more unscrupulous, and the crime rate in various places has soared unprecedentedly. Previously, no one knew the identity of the murderer. This massacre in New York Central Park was the first time the murderer was exposed to the public. According to the descriptions of many tourists who escaped from Central Park, they saw a monster covered in blood fighting a dinosaur in the park. The aftermath of the battle has caused many casualties. Although those heroes were resisting with all their strength, they were still no match for the murderer. That damn guy wouldn't even let the child go. And in the heart of Central Park, the hide-and-seek has begun. Come out no matter where you are hiding. Deadpool wielded 2 carbon sodium steel knives and slit open the demon dinosaur's belly, and crawled out from its huge body. He grinned ferociously and stood up unsteadily. Nice try, guy, but that's not how hide-and-seek works. Looking back at the dead demon dinosaur, Deadpool gasped, then he slowly turned his head and looked towards into the open space not far away. There, a black girl was looking at Deadpool with fear on her face. She sat slumped on the ground, as if she had been frightened by Deadpool's terrifying and murderous side. Seeing the girl, the corners of Deadpool's mouth slowly cracked, revealing a ferocious smile. "Aha, Moon Girl, I found you. No, don't kill me." The black girl was trembling all over. Her throat and tongue seemed to be frozen with great fear. She could not continue to finish the entire sentence and could only speak intermittently while trembling. As Deadpool said, the black girl is called Moon Girl. Her real name is Lynella Lafayette. She has the blood of the Inhumans in her body. She is also a small inventor with superb intelligence. She is only 10 years old this year. 2 years old. Because of an accident, Moon Girl came into contact with the demon dinosaur from the dinosaur world. She can switch consciousness with the demon dinosaur when she is angry, and with this ability, she becomes a superhero with its help. But in her current state, let alone resisting, even getting up and running away was a luxury for her. Deadpool walked slowly in front of Moon Girl, without any hesitation, nor did he feel any pity because of Moon Girl's tragic situation at this time, and directly cut off the other party's head with a knife, as if for Deadpool, all this it's just a game. She and the others are just children. Some people hiding around covered their mouths and couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Oh my god. No one would have thought that this butcher would be so heartless. He didn't even let the child go, and he had no intention of stopping at all. Next to the corpse of the demonic dinosaur, Marvel Girl or Ms. Marvel Kamala was lingering. She had just suffered a frontal attack from Deadpool, and with her ability, she was unable to resist the crazy Deadpool. Deadpool had already prepared various traps at the beginning of the battle, especially the electromagnetic pulse and quantum cannon designed to deal with Ms. Marvel. In just a dozen rounds, she was stabbed by Deadpool. Where? But the powerful vitality of the Inhumans prevented her from dying immediately. She tried her best to whisper to the communication bracelet. "Run quickly and find the Avengers." But before she could finish speaking, Deadpool came behind her at some point, grabbed her hair and lifted her up. Looking at the bracelet in the communication, Deadpool put his face close to hers. "Past. Ah, it's useless. You can't escape from my grasp. I will find you all one by one. Then it's time for me to hide and let you come to me." After saying that, Deadpool directly threw Ms. Marvel out, like a tattered garbage bag, and threw it next to the trash can on the roadside. Then, Deadpool turned his attention to the people who had no time to escape. Oh ho, I'm coming to catch you." Deadpool's eyes gradually became bloodthirsty. "If you don't come out, I will have to find another way to invite you out." Before he finished speaking, Deadpool directly took out his pistol and fired at the crowd indiscriminately. In just a moment, there were casualties among the crowd. The frightened people fled in all directions, but the bullet fired by Deadpool but it seemed to have eyes fixed on the back of everyone's head. A terrifying massacre feast began. Facing the defenseless ordinary people, Deadpool instantly transformed into a bloodthirsty wolf and pounced on the sheep, harvesting every living life. "No. Stop it." At this moment, a girl in a yellow uniform couldn't help but stand up. It was a golden yellow tight-fitting battle suit that resembled a slim-fitting space suit. There was also a star mark on her chest, but what was surprising was that this girl looked like she was still in elementary school. As the little girl appeared, soon, 3 more children came from the crowd and stood in front of Deadpool. They were 2 boys and 1 girl. Their uniforms were the same as the girls, but in different colors. They were silver, white, blue and red, but they all have one thing in common: they are all young. "Don't run away." Ms. Marvel's eyes widened when she saw the figures of those children, and she died the next moment. The 4 boys and girls are not ordinary children disguised as superheroes. On the contrary, the 4 of them are a team of teenage brothers and sisters with superpowers. They are brothers and sisters with a blood relationship. Due to a conflict with aliens, a seriously injured alien took a fancy to the pure and kind hearts of the 4 children. While saving them, the alien was dying. He transferred the superpowers of his own race to every child. 4 teenagers and girls have gained 4 extremely powerful abilities: control of gravity, control of flight, control of density, and control of matter. It is hoped that these 4 children can properly use these superpowers to save their world. And these 4 children did not live up to the aliens' expectations. They each took their own code names, namely, Marvel, Lightspeed, Mass Master and Amplifier, and formed a hero called Power Team. The group, with the help of their parents, maintains world peace. In their past experiences, this small team has worked with many superheroes. A number of famous heroes, including Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, have interacted with these children. But children are children after all, and they cannot watch Deadpool massacre people and remain indifferent. So at this moment, they decisively chose to give up escaping and stood resolutely in front of Deadpool, because they knew that Deadpool's purpose from beginning to end was only heroes like them. If they could stop him by sacrificing their own lives, so for the safety of their parents, they are willing to do this. "Oh ho ho, you dwarfs are finally out. I'm coming to catch you." Mr. Santa. Deadpool will give each of you a satisfying gift. Seeing all the members of the super team appear, Deadpool could no longer control his desire to kill and rushed forward with his knife drawn. The terrifying speed even turned into a phantom. He's coming. Get ready. As the eldest brother, Alexander reacted immediately when he saw Deadpool's movements. Under his control, several huge rocks rose from the ground and floated. The other three people were naturally not to be outdone when they saw this. After all, this was a life-threatening battle. Although they decided to take the initiative to protect the masses, it was impossible for them to sit back and wait for death. Everyone was obviously ready to fight the madman in front of them. Preparation to death. Throwing stones, it's a child's trick, ha 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 ha. Deadpool laughed crazily without slowing down at all. He didn't pay attention to the resistance of these children at all. In other words, he even hoped that these children could give him a surprise, such as killing him here. At this moment, suddenly, the world seemed to have stopped. The flow of time has become extremely slow. Whether it is the fast-moving Deadpool, the super team releasing his abilities, or the people running away, everyone's movements have slowed down. In this relatively stagnant world, a silver figure came from afar and arrived at the battlefield in the blink of an eye. We've finally caught up. Pietro looked at this scene that shocked him for almost 100 years, and his whole body felt bad. He never dreamed that this madman would kill children and do so cruelly. Looking at Deadpool, who still maintained a ferocious smile, Pietro seemed to see the White Queen experimenting on young children. He gritted his teeth and suppressed the anger in his heart. Immediately he turned back, randomly selected a mysterious car from the roadside, and then quickly put the members of the super team into the car one by one. After doing all this, Pietro raised his head and looked at the figure approaching quickly in the distance, nodded silently. Finally, he stood behind the car, pushing the cart with one hand, and disappeared at the end of the road in the blink of an eye. At this time, the flow of time suddenly returned to normal. Deadpool, who was sprinting forward, suddenly felt an unrivaled force coming from the front. The next moment, he heard a loud explosion and flew backwards with countless flying gravels, hitting a telephone pole heavily and breaking it into two pieces. Deadpool fell to the ground and felt that there was no part of his body that was not in pain. He got up dizzily and looked at the place where the powerful force exploded again. In the gradually dissipating smoke and dust, a short-haired woman wearing a red and blue battle uniform was slowly standing up from a large hole in the ground. Behind her, a bright red cloak was swaying in the wind, and behind her on the chest, an S symbol symbolizing hope is shining brightly under the hot sun. Seeing this woman, Deadpool's expression immediately turned 180 degrees. He screamed and used the knife to support himself to stand up, staring at the woman with wide eyes. Wow! Superwoman! Do you know that I am your fan? I even bought several boxes of your cups. Are you also here to join this grand party? It just so happens that the more people there are, the more interesting it is. Deadpool yelled in glee, forgetting about the power squad the moment he saw Kara. Kill me, whoever it is, stop me whether you are real or not. Brooklyn, Old Villa. Moonlight Knight followed Zhang-Yi to the alien girl. With the help of old John, the girl's injuries were no longer a problem, but in order to allow her body to recover better, John tied her up like a mummy, leaving only her uninjured head exposed. It is worth mentioning that when he saw John, even Moon Knight, a battle-hardened hero, couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, because in his memory, the Blood Baron should have been dead long ago. Originally, he was still guessing whether the Blood Baron in front of him was brought by Zhang-Yi from the parallel universe, but the divine power of Moonlight Knight told him that this Blood Baron was indeed the Blood Baron he had fought with. This made Moon Knight think that the pollution in his mind was even more serious. And not only Moon Knight, but also Blood Baron John was shocked. He never dreamed that Zhang-Yi would suddenly invite his mortal enemy over, but John quickly adjusted his mood. After all, he had already washed his hands in gold. If you don't want to be a villain anymore, there's no need to be afraid of Moon Knight. What's more, I am following Zhang-Yi now. Who is Zhang-Yi? That was an existence that even the beholder's relatives dared not look directly at. The Moonlight Knight was so brave that he did not dare to cause trouble for himself in front of Zhang-Yi. Seemingly sensing what the two of them were thinking, Zhang-Yi quickly explained. Whether Moon Knight believes it or not, this is at least a step, and for the unknown threat, John, a vampire who has been resurrected countless times, is obviously not something worthy of attention. Moreover, Moonlight Knight also trusted Zhang-Yi. Since Zhang-Yi, who was not contaminated, said that John was fine, he would naturally not put too much attention on John. Thinking this, Moon Knight looked at the girl lying on the bed, like a sleeping princess. Can you confirm her identity? Seeing Moon Knight's gaze, Zhang-Yi took a few steps forward and spoke slowly. When I was in the Avengers, I seem to have seen her file on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s roster, but I'm not sure. After all, it's been a while since I quit the Avengers, and this girl has changed a lot. Moonlight Knight touched his chin, thought for a moment, and then continued. He is one of the alien races recorded by S.H.I.E.L.D. I am deeply impressed because her parents did a lot of evil things in the early years, but they later changed their ways. As for the girl's name, it's Carolina Dean. It's her. As Zhang Yi listened to Moon Knight's description, the name of a youth group in the Marvel Universe suddenly appeared in his mind, the Runaway Children's League. The Runaway League, also known as the Runaway League, is a team of teenage superheroes from different backgrounds. The families of these children are very different, and their parents are not ordinary people. Among them are mutants and aliens, future people, dark wizards and other races that transcend mortals. At the same time, their parents are also a group of villains who have joined forces in private. They believe in a god called the Six-Fingered Troll, and will offer fresh lives to the troll as sacrifices according to the needs of the sacrifice. It is precisely because of this that the teenagers who accidentally discovered the identity of their parents as villains ran away from home. They united and formed an organization called the Runaway Children's Alliance to deal with their common enemy, that is, his parents. And this Carolina is one of them. Their whole family is aliens hiding on the earth. When she was a child, her parents concealed this truth and gave her a bracelet that could suppress her appearance genes, making her have lived like an earthling for more than 10 years. It wasn't until she discovered her true identity that she began to accept and exercise her alien superpowers. When the shape gene was activated, Carolina's entire body would emit rainbow-colored light, and she could use these lights to attack her opponents. At the same time, Carolina has also mastered the ability to fly, and her body has become much tougher. Although she is not at Kara's level, she is much stronger than ordinary people. It sounds like you know her very well. Moonlight Knight asked casually, sensing that Zhang Yi's tone was not right. I don't know much about her, but I know some things about her. For example, she and several other villain children formed a small group to secretly resist their parents. Maybe they are not as famous as you, but they also made a big contribution. Speaking of this, Zhang Yi shook his head slightly. Unfortunately, judging from the injuries on her body, I judge that all her teammates have died in the hands of Deadpool. They are children after all. What's more, we can't determine Deadpool's state at this time. If cognitive contamination spreads from Deadpool, then everyone who faces Deadpool will be extremely dangerous. Moonlight Knight said, while putting his hand on Carolina's forehead. A bright, milky white light emerged from Moon Knight's hand, and quickly integrated into Carolina's body. Gradually, some faint fluorescence emerged from Carolina's body, which was the rainbow-colored light belonging to her appearance genes. It's working. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up when he saw the fluorescence emerging from the gap in the bandage. Divine power is really a kind of omnipotent energy. Although Zhang Yi can also use magic to treat Carolina, there is no corresponding spell. Well, the chance of an accident is too high. From this point of view alone, divine power is really much more powerful than ordinary magic power. It's not that easy. She lacks too much blood. I'm just using my divine power to convert my blood into her blood to replenish it. But my ability is limited and I can only barely keep her alive. But can she wake up? I can't guarantee it. Moonlight Knight retracted his hand and panted slightly. Obviously his condition at the moment was not very good. After breaking away from some of the pollution, Moonlight Knight found that he had cut off the source of divine power from Kong Su at some point, and the divine power in his body could not be replenished. In this case, it will only become less and less the more you use it. You must know that this generation of Moon Knight itself was resurrected by Kong Su's powerful divine power. In other words, without the support of Kong Su's divine power, Mark is just a dead person. He can exist alive in this world, which is completely because there is Kong Su as a supporter. And when the last trace of divine power in his body was used up, that was when his body died. That's enough. Thank you for your hard work. Leave the rest to me. Zhang Yi said lightly, and immediately came to Carolina's side and stretched out his hands. What do you want to do? Moonlight Knight asked curiously. I want to enter her brain. She has actually faced Deadpool and was almost killed by him. If the source of the pollution is really Deadpool, then the other party will obviously leave deep thoughts on this girl's mind. Stamp, contact from this kind of sector will not arouse the other party's alertness. After Zhang Yi finished speaking, he closed his eyes. At the same time, he called Miss Time in his heart, and began to connect to his own spirit through the material energy of another universe, causing himself to explode with unprecedented terrifying energy in a short period of time. Powerful magic power that could not be detected by the naked eye flowed through Zhang Yi's body, and as Zhang Yi's mental power continued to spurt out, it eroded Carolina's brain. The power of magic. Moonlight Knight quickly sensed the extraordinary surge of mana. Yes, and it is the legendary magical astral projection. It can only be used by beings who control powerful magic. Legend has it that after using this magic, your soul can break barriers and freely travel through various dimensions and time streams. John was standing aside. Explained, at the same time, he looked at Zhang Yi with more and more reverence. As Zhang Yi closed his eyes, for a moment, little stars flickered and appeared. Then, everything around him gradually became clearer. However, the world at this time became abnormal in Zhang Yi's eyes. Magnificent. Countless threads like spider silk are floating in the air, and there are countless little bugs swimming in the air. At this moment, the surrounding affairs seem to have become a kaleidoscope, repeating infinitely. That dazzling change. Seeing this, Zhang Yi suddenly realized that he was now in a state of astral projection, and his way of looking at the world was naturally very different from before. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi adjusted his gaze and turned his gaze to Moon Knight and John behind him.